What's going on to all my sex education fans out there, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot here today to talk about the return of one of my not only favorite shows on Netflix, but one of my favorite shows on TV, period, and that is Season 3 of Sex Education. This is going to be such a fun video for you all. I'm going to be breaking it all down. We're talking pros, cons, character breaks down, topic discussions, and in the second half of this video, we're diving into the spoilers, so I'm so excited to be here. But before we dive into it all, make sure you all are checking me out on all my other social media accounts. If you all are new to the channel, well, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell. That way you all can get the alert for when I drop new content. If you all enjoyed this review, well, make sure to like and share this video. It helps out the channel a lot, but I also appreciate the support. And in those comments, once you've seen this third season of Sex Education, let's talk about it. Let me know your favorite moments, your favorite character, moments that got you emotional, moments that made you think about the topics at hand. Let's talk about some of the things that didn't work, and also let's talk rankings. I'm going to give you my rankings at the end of this video, but I want to know, out of the 3 seasons, which is your favorite? Let's talk about it in the comment section. So listen, I'm so excited to be here with you all because I really love this show, but we're going to be talking about this show a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and leave time codes and chapters in the description below because I will be spending the first half of this video, no spoilers, just my general thoughts. So if you haven't seen the entire season yet, I'm just going to talk about it very briefly in regards to the characters and the topics and what I liked and what I didn't like. And then the second half, once you've seen the season, we're going to be talking about the episodes. We're going to have a discussion about the decisions, the things that worked, that didn't work, and of course, maybe there's some ideas about a new season that we'll talk about in this video. So again, chapters, time codes, all that in the description below. So let's get into it because we got a lot to talk about. First and foremost, I love this show so much. Since the very beginning, when I first saw this show, I'm like, dude, this is how you do YA. I think Sex Education, Euphoria, I'll throw even Love, Victor in the mix. I think those are some of the best, like kind of, even Generation. I'll throw the Generation, which recently got canceled, but we'll see if they'll come back. But I think those shows really tackle the YA genre in such a manner where it doesn't feel like it's pandering. It doesn't feel like it has to do things just to do things. It doesn't mishandle the topics at hand. And I'm so happy for this show and its success, and I think that if you're a fan of this show, the first 2 seasons, you're going to be very happy with this third season. So let's get into it. Starting off with my character breakdown. No spoilers, of course, but this is what makes me love this show. It's the characters. And I want to start off by our main man, the lead of the show, and that is no other than Otis, who, man, Otis, he goes through it, ladies and gentlemen, in this season, the changes that he goes through, not only from a relationship standpoint, but also his extending family in this season. And of course, Otis makes some really bad decisions, but it's in this season seeing him learning from those mistakes and growing from those mistakes, which made me so happy for Otis in this. And I'm telling you all, there are some moments where I was very frustrated with Otis, and there's a relationship that I'll talk about in the second half of this video, on the spoilers, that I will surprise you all in regards to. I know this team, Maeve and Otis, but there's a new team for Otis that I'm very excited to talk about a little bit later on. But Otis was fantastic through and through throughout the season. Funny, hilarious. You were upset at times, but Otis, he's always great. He makes the right decisions when the time really matters. So you can't talk about Otis without talking about Maeve, and she is from the first season. I've always felt like Maeve has had so much on her plate at such a young age, and that continues in this season. We're seeing her not only deal with stuff at school, stuff at home continues to go on with her mother, stuff with new relationships with a friend, Isaac, and that decision he made in season 2, but also just her navigating her as an individual. She does a lot in this season regarding to what I love what Maeve is able to do in this season is we're able to see a different side of her. We see a lighter side of Maeve, right? She's still, she can be a little bit, condescending. She could be a little bit kind of closed off, but she's opening up more in this season. She's trying new things, and she does something that's very risky, huge risk when it comes to the finale. And all I'll say about that right now in the non-spoiler portion is she deserves it. I was really happy for Maeve in this season. She was fantastic in this season. And again, we'll talk about the decision in the spoiler portion, but she was really great in the season. But I got to talk about my favorite character. My main man, who has so much swag. I wish I had a friend like that in real life, and I'm talking about the one and only Eric, who, again, he's so fantastic. I need an Eric in my life, man, as a friend. He's such a good friend, but just such a great, well-thought-out character, rich character. Again, the swagger is on 1,000. His story in this season is so important because it's about something I think we all need to focus on, which is ourselves. And not in a selfish manner. how can you love someone if you don't love yourself? And that's something that Eric tackles in this season, and we see him exploring his relationship that we know took place in last year's finale with Adam, and seeing all the ups and downs in that relationship. But Eric has a pivotal part in this season where he travels somewhere to his homeland, and him traveling there really kind of propels and puts him on this path to really learn what makes him happy and who he wants to be as a person. So I really enjoyed the journey and the self-discovery that Eric goes through. And of course, he gives you the laughs, the thrills, the tears. Such a great character, and I thought he was fantastic in the season. But, those are all our main teens, and we'll talk about the secondary characters here in a second. But we also got to talk about our main adults, and I got to start with the coolest mom on the planet, and that is Jean, who is not only dealing with this new baby and the conversations surrounding her age and having a kid, is it risky and whatnot, but also tackling Yakov in this new relationship and being a mom, and also promoting her new book. Literally, she's going through it all in this season, and Jean is fantastic. She still has her conversations with people that are lost, and she's trying to help them discover who they are, and she is through and through superwoman in this season, and I really enjoyed the stuff that we got with Jean this season, and just seeing her navigating her life was fantastic. But the thing that's really impressive about this show, but in this season, because the cast is continuing to grow, it's how they're able to not only still focus on the main characters, but also give the secondary characters something to give to the audience, and try to find, a story and a path for those characters, starting with a character like Adam, for example, who, seeing him in this relationship with Eric and him learning how to share his feelings in this season was fantastic. And I'm not gonna lie, man, there were some moments that the Adam character got me emotional, positively emotional, like this, seeing him go through the stuff he goes through, and him finding his voice and finding what makes him happy was really interesting. And also, there's a friendship that I didn't see Adam having with another character that we'll talk about in the spoilers. But Adam was fantastic. I think of his parents, Michael and Maureen, who obviously are still going through a divorce, and seeing them navigate through that. But Michael, for example, very similar to his son, as we know in season 1 and 2, Michael and Adam are very closed off. They don't share their emotions, right? It's how they were raised, it's how Michael was raised, and how he's raised in Adam. And seeing him navigate, learning through, living with his friend Colin, and stuff that we get with Michael was fantastic. And him trying to maybe get his family back was really great to see. Can't go without mentioning Jackson and Viv, who are both navigating new relationships, and I enjoyed what we get from those characters. Lily and Olaf, who are dealing with their relationship and the highs and lows with that, and seeing Ola go with her story, with her past and her mom, and dealing with that. But at the same time, Lily's dealing with, which was so sad. I won't reveal in this part of the video, but there's something that Lily goes through which was just so heartbreaking. And I hope that people out there can find their hobbies and not feel like they're being picked fun of or shamed about being interested in certain things. So I enjoy what we got with those characters. And then the thing that I did not expect to love about this season, if there was an award for MVP, or not MVP, but most improved character, or a character that I didn't really care for in previous seasons that I loved about in this season, and that is Ruby, ladies and gentlemen. Ruby has a lot to do in the first half of the show in this season, and there's a relationship that she explores, and I am a fan of that relationship, and we'll talk about it a little bit later. But we learn about her family, where she comes from, her emotions. Ruby was fantastic. But something that I really want to shine a light on is the new characters. We get a couple new characters, starting off with the new headmistress by the name of Hope, played by Jemima Kirk, who I know from her days on Girls, and just knowing how that character was, and now she's responsible in this show, she was great. Hope adds a lot of complexity to this season, ladies and gentlemen, and it's funny that her name is Hope, because sometimes there wasn't a lot of hope given from that character. She's shaking up things in Moordale, adding some new rules, making the kids do things that they might not want to do, and there's even some story that we get from her regarding her personal life that I really enjoy. But Hope, very interesting character. But also there's a new character by the name of Cal, played by Dua Sala, who I'm a fan of their work as an artist. Really great songs. But they're playing a character by the name of, a non-binary character who goes by different pronouns, and Cal is a very interesting character and adds a new layer and more conversations in representing the non-binary community. And I thought that Cal was fantastic, and the relationship that we see Cal involved with in this season was great. And again, we'll talk about that more in the spoiler portion. But Hope, Cal, really great additions to this cast, which brings me to transitioning to the themes and the topic that this show adds to this season without diving too deep into it, but just kind of covering it. This is so great to see. What I love about Sex Education is, of course, it's fun, it's funny, there's emotions, but it's the topics that the show handles and how they tackle it and how they represent a group of people, how they represent educating people on sex. And I wish when I was younger, I mean, I still learn from this show being in my 30s, but I wish when I was a teenager I could have had a show like this, even though it is very mature because it is a lot of sex, more sex than ever before. But I love what the show brings to the table in regards to the conversation. I think of stuff how the show covers things like body anatomy. Does size matter for both male and female, and how society puts pressure on the different body parts, right? I think of how this season tackles not being able to be yourself and trying to appease your partner and losing yourself within relationships. I love how this show tackles how opposites attracts and how you have to navigate finding common interests within your love partner. Gender identity, pronouns, genderqueer. The show tackles This season likes to shine a light on sex shaming, ageism in this particular season. We have things like gender roles, how it's taboo for women to talk about sex, how it's taboo for men to show emotion. So those are just a couple to name off the top that I really thought was handled beautifully. And there's so much more to explore, but those were some that came to mind. But before I give it all A's and masterpieces and all that stuff, because there's a lot of stuff I love about this season, there are some criticism. And I want to start by saying that I love the characters through and through. They're so fantastic, so fleshed out, so developed, but there are moments where the show feels a little bit crowded. I feel like there's subplots that sometimes don't get completely forgotten about, but kind of loses itself towards the main stories and kind of gets, brought up 3-4 episodes down the road. And what I mean by too crowded is, again, we get new characters, but then again, we got new characters last season, and it's just like the balancing act of like, okay, we have our main characters that we want to focus on, but every now and then, let's check in with Aimee, let's check in with Raheem, let's check in with Adam. And sometimes the balancing act wasn't all that well handled, in my opinion, which, I think of, I mentioned a couple characters, but I think of Lily, I think of Cal, I think of Isaac, I think of Hope, I think of Aimee, I think of Jackson, and Ruby, who I mentioned earlier, who was very pivotal in the first half, but really literally got forgotten about in the second half. So sometimes it's a little bit overcrowded in regards to how the show checks in on different characters, which brings me to how the show handles the topics, which I think is really well, but sometimes I felt like the show has a lot to say, but at the same time, they know that they're kind of, it falls within the YA genre, and I think sometimes the show kind of leans a little bit too heavy on the stereotypes that you might find in a YA genre, whether it be kind of forced drama, whether it be characters' decisions that go against the grains of the characters that we know. So I feel like sometimes they were at conflict with each other, which, like, there's a lot of good, deep, emotional adult themes in the show, but then sometimes we're like, we still got to appease the younger audience because we fall within that YA genre. Which brings me lastly to, I thought the first half of this season was absolutely fantastic. It was just great pacing, great writing, great character development. The end of the show, the finale, was emotionally earned and just incredibly emotional. But there are moments in that second half of the season that I felt were a bit rushed. And I won't dive into the spoilers here a little bit later, but I feel like some of the middle episodes were just not as developed and not as well paced as the first half and how they finished the season. But listen, before I give you all my overall thoughts, before we get into all of that, make sure you're liking the video, sharing the video, leave your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and of course hit that notification bell. That way you don't miss any of my other content. Overall, this season proves to me that this is still one of my favorite shows on Netflix, and easily one of my favorite shows on TV, period. It represents real people dealing with real issues, and the show manages to put a smile on my face, to make me cry, to make me happy, to make me sad, and having great, real, earned emotions. And those are all things that makes for a great show. If you are a fan of Season 1, Season 2, you are going to love Season 3. I personally think this is the best season yet. And I say yet because the way things end, we got to get a Season 4. So I thought this was a fantastic season of Sex Education, and I can't recommend it enough. So that is the end of the non-spoiler portion of this video. Hope you all enjoyed it. We're going to transition over to the spoilers, kind of have more of a discussion about the individual moments within the episode, starting with episode 1, which I thought was fantastic, the way that this season opened, dealing with penis size. In the body anatomy, we have our Dax character who's dealing with that. And does size matter, right? As Maeve says to him, you have 10 fingers and a tongue. You can make it work. I love how this show kind of tackles that conversation. But it's within this first episode that we do meet Hope, which right off the bat, I'm like, she's super cool. She got swag. She's younger, so she can maybe relate to these characters a little bit more. But Hope has... she comes off cool and comes off hip, but she has some other things in her mind that we'll talk a little bit about later. But it's within the first episode that we meet the new sex king, who's revealed to be Kyle. And this is where we see the relationship between Otis and Rudy kind of take place. And, you know, the secrets of like, okay, Kyle's like, I won't tell anyone about your secret if you don't tell anyone about mine. But that doesn't last long because the secret gets out that Ruby and Otis are hooking up. And that kind of leads to going to the conversation with the adults, which is Jean and Yakov going through their baby situation. She's been avoiding him, but she inevitably tells him that they do have a baby on the way, which we end the first episode with Hope. Again, I love that her name was Hope, but she wasn't given a lot of hope in the first half of this show and throughout the season because she teared down the bathroom, in which we know that a lot of stuff went down in that bathroom. So that kind of showed us, oh, it's a brand new year, it's a brand new head mistress, and she's ready to shake things up at Moordale. So moving on to episode 2, which by the way, again, episode 1 was fantastic. I love the pacing, the comedy. Getting back in this world is always great. But episode 2 kind of tackles a theme in regards to changing yourself to appease your partner. As we see, Otis is changing his swag. You know, Ruby's giving him some tips on what to wear with the glasses and the scarf and the clothes and all that stuff. And she starts to call him OT as she's staying at the house now in regards to staying the night, which again, Jean, man, she's the coolest mom I can ever think of on television regarding just how open she is with Otis and allows him to do new things. But speaking of new things, we got some new rules at Moordale given by Hope. You know, they have to wear wardrobes. You can't wear piercings. And sex, oh yeah, don't even mention sex when it comes to this new curriculum of Moordale. But we get the hit song, which talking about the body anatomy, which makes its way into the the 7th episode, which was a hit. I'm gonna need that soundtrack of this season. But we see Maeve and Isaac, which again, this is the spoilers, obviously, and this is a discussion. Let me know how you all feel about Isaac, man, because obviously the show is a character who seems genuine. Whenever he's around Maeve, he feels like he's himself, the same way about Maeve. But man, I still can't get over what he did last season and just kind of how the show kind of breezes over that situation and how do he handle that stuff. But let me know what you all think. Is Isaac a good fit for Maeve? Are they going to maybe be a thing in the future? Does he have someone else that we can picture him with in future episodes down the road? Let me know your thoughts on that. But transition to, we meet Cal, and again, the pronouns of them and they, and again, the stuff that Cal goes through with Jackson in this season was pretty interesting. But the big thing, too, that we get as far as relationships is Adam and Eric. Some of the stuff was frustrating. It was moments in this season, and particularly in the second episode, where I completely understand where the show's going, because the whole thing with Eric is he's trying to discover who he is sexually, right? And he's obviously openly gay, but having Adam kind of slowly open up the door. Of course, they're showing the relationship at school, but he's not showing that relationship at home with his mom, and just there's restrictions, there's limits to it, right? So that it was kind of frustrating to go through that journey with them, but it's very understandable because you have one person that's very comfortable with sexuality, another person who's just discovering who they are as a person. But it was a lot of ups and downs with them in this relationship as they're trying to have sex for the first time, but Adam's not comfortable with it, as we kind of talk about that a little bit later in regards to he wants Eric to have sex with him versus the other way around, which brings us to ending the second episode where Isaac, which I'm glad they did this very up top, Isaac tells Maeve about the message, not before they kiss though. They kiss, which, they're gonna maybe be a couple, but then he's like, I gotta tell you something. He tells her the truth, which, she feels like the trust is lost now, because we all know Maeve is it's very hard to get into the good graces of Maeve. So they go on this journey throughout the season, and again, let me know Do you all think that they are a good fit? Do you think they'll get together at maybe a later point, even though we know there's a new relationship towards the end of the season? But we have Adam and, or I should say Adam's dad, Michael, moves in with Colin to wrap up the episode, and we see a new family moving in together with Yokov and his daughter, and this whole situation, them moving in, which was very awkward, and Otis and Ruby make it official that they are now boyfriend and girlfriend. I'm going to say it right now. I think Otis and Ruby are a better fit for each other than Otis and Maeve. I know it's crazy. I know what you're gonna say in the comments, but I really do think that they were just learning how to develop each other, how to really know what ticks the other person off. But unfortunately, Otis' heart was elsewhere. But I'm telling you, man, Ruby, she was coming around. I really enjoyed them as a couple, but let me know which team you stand on. But moving on, we see that Viv takes over Jackson's job as the head of the school, and we see Hope again is starting to implement the uniforms to the school, and everyone's obviously upset about that. Which brings us to episode 3 with Eric and my boy Adam, as this episode really kind of focuses on opposites attract, right? We see that with Adam and Eric, and we also see that with Otis and Ruby, as, man, Hope, she's a savage. She was a savage very early on in this season, as she's telling the girls, she calls the girls into her office and, picks them apart one by one. Maeve, your hair looks like the Cookie Monster, and just going back and forth. But she would have moments like that, and then moments later she would be like, by the way, Maeve, come here. I'm going to try to help you out with the funding with the school. And she was trying to get... Hope is a very complex character. She was trying to do the adult thing, but it was how she was going about doing it. And the character of Hope, coming from this perspective of my generation handle things this way, that means that your generation should handle it this way. But that's not how things work. People evolve, times evolve. There's so much that can change within, 10 years from, an age difference, or even 5 years from an age difference. So it was really interesting to kind of see that, how the show navigated that character, where I think she had good intentions. It was just the way she went about it was very, very poorly handled, especially when she handles things like Cal and the way she was kind of tackling that whole situation and how the kids should be in her eyes, which, by the way, Adam watches the Kardashians. That was a very funny moment when they go on the double date. That was one of my favorite scenes of the entire season of the show. That double date was fantastic. But we see Ruby tells, and damn you, Otis. Ruby tells Otis she loves him. And he says, oh, that's interesting. Okay, bye. I'm like, dude, she's giving you her heart. Obviously, the heart knows what the heart wants, but I was very impressed with Ruby. I love what they gave the character this season. I love meeting her dad, her seeing where she lives, and just getting a perspective of how she kind of goes about things and how it's really just a facade, right? She's putting on this front of, like, Mean Girls, and she's like, you can't, exterior-wise, she's beautiful exterior, but she's hardened inside, but it's like the opposite, right? So I really enjoyed what we learned with her, and I'm telling you, man, Otis, you made a mistake, man. But we're going on to episode 4, where we get more of the conversations about the Maeve and Isaac situation, where they kiss, they make up, and they have like this, which was really, again, the show tackles so many different things, not just relationship-wise, but just like from a relationship, someone that's in a wheelchair, how they can be, sexually pleased, and seeing, the touching of the head and the chest and stuff like that. But I'm just like, this dude lied to you. Remember that. He deleted the message. He went into your privacy and deleted that message. But it was just, seeing that conversation being had was always great to see. But Otis, Rudy breaks up with you, man. As Adam, speaking of love, Adam and Eric tell each other they love them. But, like I said, Ruby had to break things apart, because if you can't give her your heart, I completely understand, but I really do think they would have been a good couple. But we move on to the class trip. We go to episode 5, which this episode focuses on sex shaming, as well as older women having kids and the conversation around that. We see Eric makes his way to Nigeria, which was a very pivotal moment for that character, which we'll talk about. But let's transition and talk about Hope. Because in this episode, we learn about her IVF treatments and learning about maybe the jealousy that Hope had regarding, obviously, Jean and her thoughts on sex and teenagers and the conversation being had. And obviously, Hope is the complete opposite of that. But she was jealous. I really do think that Hope was jealous that Jean, at her older age, 47, 48, is able to have a child. And we see that Hope isn't able to have a child. Again, her name was Hope, and she doesn't have a lot of hope in her personal life, which I kind of like how they added that to that character. But we see that Jean, speaking of characters, this is where the show tackles ageism and how one of the nurses were talking about the risk of having kids at an older age, and obviously that upset Jean, and I think that's a conversation that, is an important conversation, in regards to, sure, there's risk out there, but there's a way to go about that. And that gentleman, when he said it to her, I was pissed off for Jean. I want to punch him in the face through the TV screen. But, they tackled that. But then we go to that field trip that we see, which a lot of stuff is going on that field trip. Number one, Raheem and the poop, on the window. That was very interesting, to say the least, and to see all the stuff play out. And this is where we see I did not see them becoming friends. And I don't know if they will call each other's friends, but I think there's an appreciation between the two as we see Raheem and Adam start to have a friendship develop, because we see that Adam takes the blame for the poop on the car, and obviously how all that shakes out. But the thing that was really interesting, it was seeing that Yolof wanted the pregnancy test from Jean, because we learn later in the season that he has trust issues because everything that happened with his wife, and that she was going to see another guy, but she ended up staying with him because she got sick and all that. So we kind of understand where his trust comes from. And I love Jean, but I don't know if the pregnancy, the paternity test was a little bit too far, but I can understand where an outsider would see how Jean was a little bit, she has every right to have different relationships with older men, younger men, but obviously that trust issue was a big thing in their relationship. But we also, speaking of relationships, we see Cal and Jackson share a kiss for the first time, but obviously it was Cal wasn't ready for that at that moment, which we'll talk about them a little bit later. But we see Maeve and Otis finally having a discussion about that voicemail, and they have a confusing kiss, because the confusion really comes in with those characters, because obviously Otis is like, oh, you've heard it, and he memorized that voicemail, but obviously she's in a relationship with Isaac, which makes things a little bit complicated. Again, it's called a complicated kiss. But episode 6, girls can't talk about sex, boys can't cry, and all the gender roles that are out there, as we see Maeve gets accepted to the school, but she can't afford the funds, and this is where Hope is like, the school just doesn't have funds, which we know the school is broke, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But we go to the new branding of Moordale, as it is now being rebranded by Hope by, I believe she called it Sparkside, which is a very weird name for a school, but Hope, sparks and happiness, I guess, was the inspiration of that name. But we see Hope, which this was the moment I talked about my non-spoiler review, which really was emotional, and I felt so bad. She shamed Lily and Cal and Adam in front of the entire school, had them wear the things on their neck and their signs of their behavior. And Lily, all of them, I feel bad for Cal, I feel bad for Adam. But it was I'm not going to lie, I thought the show was going to get dark for two characters. Not Cal, but Lily. I thought that when Otis went to her door, I thought that she was going to take her own life. And we'll talk about Jean, but I thought Jean was going to die. But those were two moments I'm like, dude, this show, please don't do that to me, because that would just crush my heart. But I really feel bad for those characters at that moment. But we see Michael is seeking help at this point in the season. He's changing his ways. He's starting to open up more. He's cooking more. He's opening up to new ideas, new things. And he's trying to get his wife back, and he's talking to Jean about all of that. But we get a moment here. Val was pissing me off in this season. She was so frustrated, because I get what she was doing, because obviously her education is very important to her, but she finally comes around to Hope, just using her and actually being like a little racist, a little discrimination there with Hope, and revolving with, having Val have this position because, she's a black woman and that looks good to the media and all that stuff. But her true colors come out as she records what she feels about the kids in school, how Hope was just going in saying that, your generation thinks you know it all and you think you're unique and all that. She showed her true colors, to say the least. But we see the trip that Eric makes, and again, talk about another dark moment. When Eric meets that guy at the wedding and he takes him to the gay bar, before they get there, I thought that this was like a setup. I thought this, because we know, as Adam mentions, isn't Nigeria unsafe for gay people because it's against the law to be gay. I thought that dude was like taking him to get beat up or to get hurt. Again, the show had moments when I thought they were going to get dark, and I'm glad they didn't go fully into that. But, in this moment, he goes to the gay bar. He's able to be himself for the first time, because obviously in the relationship with Adam, he can't fully be out, because obviously Adam's mom doesn't know about the relationship, even though she learns later on. But I'm like, doesn't she know that they were dating? Like, you walked in on them doing karate and wrestling. But either here or there, he kisses that boy. He goes to his house. They don't have sex, but they kiss. But it was in that kiss that Eric realized, man, I'm not with the person I probably should be, and we'll talk about that here in a second, which brings us to episode 7, which, we see Isaac breaks things off with Maeve, and because obviously she's confused with Otis, which makes sense, and good call on him, because again, this goes back to Ruby. If you can't give me your heart, why should I give you mine? We get the opening day insanity where the kids make the sex video, and this is in front of Hope's superiors, and we see Ruby, who has been absent for like 3 episodes. She gives her an arm burn and plays all that stuff out, and she ultimately wins that little fight that we get there. But we see at this point in the season, Maeve's mom kidnaps her little sister, but they inevitably find her, and we think she's saying her goodbye, but she makes her appearance in episode 8. Eric tells Adam the truth that he kissed the guy, and this is where I feel bad for Adam, because I felt the emotions. He was finally slowly but surely opening up. But again, it's that conversation about someone that's more comfortable with their sexuality in Eric, but someone that's just discovering their sexuality as in Adam. It is very hard to... I can see both sides. I can see both sides of the spectrum, but I did feel bad for Adam at that moment as Michael finally speaks to his brother. Again, I love the stuff that both Adam and Michael did in this show and did in this season. He speaks up to his brother because we learned about Michael. He's been bullied by his dad and his older brother when he was younger. But we end, and this, again, I mentioned the show had me. It had me. Jean has the baby early, and they made it seem like Jean was going to die. And if she would have died, I'm just going to say that right now, I would have cried my eyes out. I have no problems admitting that because I love that Jean character. That would have been very emotional. But we see Michael finally comes to his wife, and they make up. I thought they was going to make up, but she still wants to go through the divorce. And we end with Otis and Maeve kissing. Classic, drama, romance. They're kissing in the rain, and, he ignores the call. And I'm like, dude, your mom might not make it. But that gives us to the ending, the finale episode 8, in which Jean is going to have surgery, but the daughter, the little girl, is fine. It's just a little girl by the name of Joy. We finally meet. It's just so funny. We meet Viv's, her boyfriend, I believe his name was Eugene or something like that. That was a very funny moment. But Jean wakes up, and she is the king of everything. She's okay. She's not going to die, which... that was hard. That was hard to see. I was very happy to see that she was alive. But we get the money. Maeve's mom gives her the money for she can go to the school, which we'll talk about that moment in a second. Cal and Jackson decide that they're not going to be a thing because obviously Jackson is kind of like, obviously being in this gender career relationship was, a little bit to take in. He talked to his mom about it, but it was just like, again, if you're not comfortable with yourself, then, let me figure out some things on my end. That's what happens with Cal. And I love the stuff that we get with Cal and I believe the character name, I can't remember the character's name at the moment, but when Cal was helping that character out regarding wearing stuff at school and really being who they want to be, I love that moment between those two characters. But Mordale's broke. The funding has been pulled from the school, and the students are going to have to find new education, which I believe is going to be the big thing about season 4. We're going to see these characters being split up, which is going to be heartbreaking to see where these kids go to school. But Eric, speaking of heartbreak, Eric breaks things off with Adam, which again, I felt that. I got emotional because Adam was just coming around. He finds what he's passionate about, which obviously he loves Eric. He's starting to do the poems. He's teaching his dog how to do the tricks. But, he loses Eric. And we'll see what happens with those characters next season. Or Adam, Raheem, is that a thing that's going to be coming next season? Like I mentioned, the baby's born and everything's good there. Otis and Hope have their heart-to-heart moment. And regarding, Hope is telling Otis about her failures as a woman. She can't produce a baby and all that. And I thought that was a really good moment for the character there. And again, I mentioned... the big moment, Lila was the character's name. It just popped up that Cal had that moment when I loved that moment between those two, and Cal was able to help that character. But we end the show with Maeve going off to America to go to school. She tells Otis the bad news, and it's not a goodbye, but it's a see you later. So, hey, next season, we got to find a new school for these students. Next season, we're going to see, is the relationship still going to be good with Maeve and Otis? We're going to see Adam and Raheem maybe. Who's Eric going to talk to? Is he going to get back with Raheem? Is there another character that he's going to, fall in love with? Or maybe just be himself, you know, and just maybe not have a relationship. Will Ruby find someone? Because she deserves someone. I love that Ruby character. And of course, all the other characters, man. This was a fantastic season through and through. I appreciate you all for sticking around in the video so far. Again, if we're talking spoilers of this part of the video, let me know what you thought about all those big moments. What moments got you in the emotions, got you sad, got you angry, got you happy, got you excited. Let's talk about that in the comments, guys. I love this season. It's my favorite season so far. 3, 1, and 2 is my rankings, but I want to know yours in the comments. Your highs, your lows, your thoughts, your theories of what you hope to see in season 4, because we've got to get a season 4. Netflix, don't cancel the show or I will cancel you. But nonetheless, that's my thoughts on this season. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Before you leave, make sure to like the video, share the video, leave your thoughts in the comments, of course, and of course, subscribe to the channel. Hit that bell. That way you don't miss any of my other videos. As you can see on the screen now, subscribe, check out my other videos. Hope you enjoyed this discussion. I surely did. Hope you're staying safe, and we'll see you on the next video.